Good morning. Great to see you all. People, real people in the flesh. Faces, so many of us. Look at you, loving it. Lovely blazer there, Virginia. Excellent. Also smartly dressed. Welcome everyone to Edinburgh's Dynamic Earth. That's for those of you who don't know where you are. You are in Edinburgh at Dynamic Earth. And welcome to Scotland's inaugural AI Summit. Thank you so much, everyone, for making the pilgrimage to be here today from far and wide. I know some of you have had an easy commute from Edinburgh or Glasgow, but it's great to have you here, and we're thrilled to have you here. Good morning also to folks at home who are watching us through these cameras here, dotted around. Mass surveillance going on here. They're all probably at home still in their pajamas or getting an Amazon delivery, one or the other. I'm Nick Kwek. I'm a technology journalist, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a producer, I'm a director, I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, not a fib teller, I promise. And it's my pleasure to be here today to host Scotland's first AI Summit right here in my homeland of Scotland. It's not quite Fife, but it's close enough. You may have spotted me on TV where I regularly present for the BBC's weekly technology TV show Kwek, which is broadcast on BBC One, News, World. It's also on iPlayer. And if you haven't seen it, then clearly you've not been awake enough in the middle of the night. Prime time, prime time. You may have seen me being electrically shocked around the streets of Germany as the world's first human sat-nav. Or you may have seen me drowning in the Mediterranean. That's me receiving my hoverboard lessons from daredevil Frankie Zapata, and that water was very salty indeed. Or more recently, you may have spotted me kangaroo spotting with thermal camera-clad drones down under, or back up here as I was investigating the buoyant wave energy sector up in Orkney. See what I did there? Yeah, buoyant. Anyway, over the years, I've covered loads of tech and innovation all over the world, from Microsoft to MIT to Facebook, sorry, Meta, to Twitter, to Amazon, even NASA let me in through their doors. I don't know what they were thinking. And I feel like I've basically covered every startup in between, from cryogenically frozen bodies to smart-collared cows, to carbon capture and storage. On my travels, though, I've been lucky enough to have interviewed some of the biggest and brightest brains in the world of artificial intelligence. Often speaking to them, not having a clue what they're talking about, and I'm just nodding along, politely, smiling, nodding. But I've witnessed some real innovation recently in the world of AI. That's developments in robotics, in retail, in healthcare, in education, in farming, in fighting crime, the list goes on. And that's because basically AI is everywhere. It's being developed at such a pace that it's kind of difficult to fathom. Often by the time you wrap your head around a concept or you get to know a new theory or idea, by the time you wrap your head around that, something else has happened. And then you realize that everything you thought you knew was a bit redundant. But anyway, that's why it's a great time for Scotland to be shining a spotlight on AI. And, you know, not just rolling their sleeves up and getting on with it, but actually trying to pioneer in this pretty ginormous space. And today we've got a heck of a lineup for you guys, all centered around our AI strategy's 3 pillars: trustworthy, ethical, and inclusive. We'll hear from some brilliant folks from various different areas of AI. There'll be discussions and chats, there'll be workshops, breakout sessions, and most importantly, we want you guys to be involved. Today is interactive. You can ask questions to the people up here, so long as you're logged on to the online system. Please go ahead and sign in. The address is on your web browser at scottishAIsummit-online.com, and you use your details, your event details, to log in there and ask questions for those people up online here, on stage here. When we've got time towards the end of the segments, obviously we'll endeavour to answer as many questions as we can, but you know, time is of the essence. This morning you'll hear about Scotland, about adoption, challenges, and responsibility. And then this afternoon, we'll explore, and in a way, we'll try to solve these with questions about ethics, education, inclusivity, and co-design. We hope that, fingers crossed, you actually take away something from today. albeit, it could be a discovery, maybe it's a wee idea, or maybe it's just meeting someone new to call a friend or enemy. Anything can happen. We've got a coffee break this morning around 10 o'clock. Lunch will be served at the back at 12:30. There's another coffee break networking opportunity, shall we say, at the back at 3, before finally we wrap up around 5:30. So it's a whole day we've got a plan for you guys today. Some housekeeping before we get going. Please have your phones and other mobile devices on silent, but please keep them on because you'll need them to ask questions. And once you're at it, please tweet us, tag us, like us, even love heart us at Scott AI Strategy. And please use hashtag Scott AI Summit. There's a slight difference there. I'm reliably informed that Wi-Fi is available for those who don't have data, which you'll find the details on the back of your badges. Toilets are upstairs on the 2nd floor, and for those watching at home, hopefully you don't need directions to those. There are no fire drills planned for today, so if you hear an alarm go off, please be worried. But no, don't be. But seriously, do take it seriously. And Dynamic House staff will show you and point you to the right direction for the fire evacuation procedure. And you'll need to leave via these doors here and here. And I'm suddenly cabin crew, lock and cross-check. But in a way, I am cabin crew because you guys need to buckle up as we go on a journey into the world of AI. And before we take off, I have to let you know there has been a slight schedule change. Unfortunately, our special guest this afternoon couldn't make it today, so our afternoon break will run for about 10 minutes longer than planned. And Irakli's keynote will now kick off at 3:40 instead of 3:45. So please be around for that. COVID, I must ask people to please keep your masks on wherever possible because we want to keep this event as inclusive and as safe for everyone as possible. So that's that done. Now, it's finally time for me to welcome on our first speaker to the stage. Are you ready? Are you ready? To deliver our opening address, please give a very warm welcome to Cabinet Secretary for Finance and the Economy, Kate Forbes.
Well, good morning, although it's not often I'm introduced by "Are you ready?" So I don't know what you're ready for, but certainly I hope to be able to kick off this session with focusing on not just where we are, which I think Nick very helpfully set out. We are here in Scotland, but where we're at in our journey towards ensuring that Scotland is leading the way when it comes to adopting and developing AI, but even more critically than that, that we're leading the way in the way that we do that. And that, of course, is the title for our conference today. I can't say how lovely it is to see some real human faces. At a conference about AI, it seems slightly ironic that I should start with that, but it's wonderful to be able to see people in the flesh, although a warm welcome to those that are joining online as well. And one of the great benefits of a conference like this are the conversations that happen on the fringes over coffee, the connections, the alliances, what I like to call the suspicious, unlikely alliances that form over a cup of coffee that actually end up developing into a brilliant relationship and solving all the world's problems, perhaps not today, but certainly in the future. And over my comments this morning, I wanted to talk a little bit about where we're trying to go, where we've been, and how we're going to get there. So it's quite simple. And we, of course, are speaking or meeting today just meters away, not too far. I passed it this morning as I walked to this conference, just meters away from Panmure House, the home, of course, of the Scottish Enlightenment economist, Adam Smith, world-renowned, of course, for the wealth of nations, but also the theory of moral sentiments, which set out, of course, the ethical and the philosophical ideas that underpin his later works. And why do I start with that? Because we have to approach things in the same way as the ethics that underpinned the theory of moral sentiments, setting out our expectations at the beginning, although we're pretty far into that beginning phase, setting out our approach at the beginning, for how AI is to be developed and how it is to be used in an ethical and socially responsible way. Because we all know that that's not inevitable. It's not inevitable unless you make it so, unless you're clear about what those ethical parameters are at the very beginning. I'm a politician. I'm not a tech genius, unlike many of you. And my job is to bridge the gap so often between the public's sense of the way things are and the experts' delivery of the way things are. And in the whole debate around AI, there's probably few things as important as ensuring that we secure the public's trust in this beginning phase. That is absolutely essential if we are to fully unlock the potential of AI. And it's an area in which Scotland as a nation has a wealth of potential to try and pioneer the right way of doing that. So we started a few years ago, 2019 I think we kicked off, with setting out Scotland's AI strategy. And that captured what our vision was quite succinctly. It was a vision for Scotland to become a leader in the development and use of trustworthy, ethical and inclusive AI. It set out the principles that would guide our work towards that, and it set out the actions that we would take to strengthen Scotland's AI ecosystem over the next 5 years. We worked with the Data Lab to develop that, and a wonderful group, advisory group, to develop that strategy. And having launched the work to develop the AI strategy in autumn 2019, it's almost impossible to believe that it celebrated 1 year since the publication of that strategy, although I think all of us would agree that multiple lifetimes have passed since autumn 2019. And as the strategy acknowledges, we already have so many strengths on which we are building. There are great foundations there. And the detail that is set out in that Scotland's first State of AI report, which is published today on the AI strategy website, looks at some of the achievements that have been made and delivered by those working in this space. And I wanted to highlight just a few of those key achievements to celebrate, to acknowledge what's possible, and to set the groundwork for what comes next. Because foremost in the AI strategy's achievements, it's people-centeredness. And I go back to that point around how we secure the public's trust. And to do that, we need to start with the individual, with the public themselves. We have quickly ensured that off the back of the AI strategy, we created the Scottish AI Alliance, chaired by Gillian Doherty, and with a dynamic leadership circle so that we could take a true partnership approach. And that has quickly established itself as a forum for dialogue, for collaboration, and for above all else, for action when it comes to all things AI in Scotland. So what have we achieved? Well, we have built the groundwork to inform development of community engagement and participation mechanisms, because it's important that we continue to engage with people in discussions about AI. We reflected that in the focus for our CivTech challenge on trust and agency over the use of AI in the public sector. We very much in keeping with our guiding principles, we obviously have continued to work with UNICEF and reflecting our ambitions to work on that global AI stage. And that's not obviously the only work in this area, working with UNICEF on getting AI right for every child. So roundtables with nearly 100 attendees from around the world. And so what we did was start with the individual, build out in terms of collaboration, incorporating all manner of industries, of sectors, of backgrounds, and then take it even further so that we're very much centering our work on the international stage. That has been our focus to date, to ensure that we keep that meaningful dialogue going with people, normal, ordinary people, and then building out from that. And that theme of dialogue and engagement has probably been the cornerstone of most of what we have done around AI. It's been the golden thread of the work that we have done and will remain so not just in the coming year, but going forward as we continue to implement the actions from the AI strategy. And that's why we're taking a citizen-led approach, which you can see in terms of the principles when it comes to unlocking the value of data programme, with the public involved at every stage of the journey, and that work will begin shortly. We have developed the Scottish AI Playbook book, which is an open and practical guide to how we do AI in Scotland. The website for that is being launched today, and there will be further development, obviously, to which everybody's involved, everybody's invited to contribute. Alongside all of that is, of course, the Data Lab's ongoing work. The Data Lab has been a critical part of our developing of the AI strategy. And the Data Lab continues to provide online courses on driving value from and demystifying AI. And of course, ensuring that when it comes to bringing people together, we seek out those who need to be part of the conversation rather than just expecting people to self-select and to volunteer. So that's a quick run-through of some of the principles that underpin the first year since the introduction of the strategy. It's some of the themes that have been involved. But of course, all of that comes together when you see the development of AI solutions and the adoption of AI across our landscape. So what's next? And that's where I wanted to focus most of my remarks this morning. What's next? We've got some solid foundations. We've got some railroad tracks, as it were, in terms of principles. We have a vision of where we want to get to, and we also have that spirit of collaboration when it comes to the dialogue and the implementation. It's joint enterprise that will take us into the next year and beyond. And there's a number of different examples where that has been kicked off and needs to come to fruition. So an AI hub for life science, NHS and social career will create AI innovation and commercialisation capability in Scotland, linked to the AI strategy and other initiatives. We've provided £20 million for that in the current programme for government. We are developing our horizon scanning capability, considering the pace at which AI evolves. And obviously, we're continuing our efforts to improve the public's understanding and adoption of AI and formulating further plans for national and international engagement. And importantly, particularly for someone who's the Finance Secretary, work to better leverage in investment, research and development funding, where there are many other links to Scottish Government programmes. We're building on our previous AI for Climate challenge, which is run in partnership with Scottish Enterprise, and we're establishing the AI for Good programme later on this year. And on that very theme, I particularly welcome the news that applications for the next Edinburgh AI Accelerator is open, which will focus on using AI for transformative change, and that's due to open in a few weeks' time in April. And we'll also continue to work on progressing the data and the digital infrastructure that we need. So work to develop the strategy is obviously an ongoing mission. That work needs to align with other initiatives. If I look at the wider Scottish public sector landscape, and I look at the number of programmes and of initiatives, I look at the number of public requests for us to solve problems and to introduce smarter ways of working. My approach and my view to all of that is, rather than trying to solve those problems and then retrofit digital or data solutions later down the track, we need to start with an approach that recognises the value of data, recognises the value of AI, and start there. That is something that all of us in this room get. And whilst there's a lot of people in this room, I think there's about 200 people here and perhaps 500 people online, whilst there's a lot of us that understand that, my job, our collective job, is to make sure that that is not just a niche area of interest with the same individuals interested in solving the problems from an AI perspective. It's about taking a step back and working with those who are concerned about the services being offered to citizens, who are concerned about some of the global challenges that we face, and work with them in that collaborative space. And so whilst a lot of my remarks this morning are focused on, for example, the principles of formulating collaboration and dialogue, that absolutely needs to be the cornerstone of all the work that we do. And so I mentioned data, and for me, data is at the heart of our whole approach, not just to digital, but our whole approach to improving, and I'm obviously speaking specifically here from a public sector perspective, but it's true across sectors. Data is the key to solving the challenges that we face. And the responsible use of that data has the potential not just to change services, but to transform the whole way we think of serving our citizens. It has the potential to improve services, it has the potential to increase efficiency, and it has the potential to support delivery of the clearly articulated outcomes in the National Performance Framework. There's a lot of great work going on in this area. What I want to ensure is that it becomes the norm and not the exception. It's not the examples that I can cite here on the stage of where data has been used on an exceptional basis to improve services. It becomes the standard by which we approach problems. And we're working with COSLA and others to ensure that Scotland truly is a digital nation. Easy to say, harder to implement, and it's that implementation piece that's so critical. So, as I come to a close, having talked about the development of the strategy, of where we've been over the last year, that year has passed very fast, and where we're going next in terms of a number of different programmes, I want to come back to the AI strategy's vision for Scotland to become a leader in the development and the use, not just of AI, laudable though that ambition is, but it is the use of trustworthy, ethical and inclusive AI. It's so important this morning, I think, before we get into the rest of the conference, it's important to acknowledge that developing an ethical approach to all digital goods and services, not just AI, needs to be a thread that runs through our work. That will allow us to reap the economic and the social benefits while mitigating some of the perceived and actual downsides alongside that. And I'm very pleased that an expert academic group has been considering these issues and will make recommendations to the Scottish Government and will take into account the views of the National Digital Ethics Public Panel with a report due in summer 2022. So I look forward to publication of that report. I'm a bridge between conferences like this, where there's a hugely exciting and very enthusiastic approach to what is possible with AI, and a general public which knows about AI, is cited about AI, but has a whole host of different views on AI, and making sure that we bring the public with us because they can see in the way that we develop and adopt AI, there is that perfect integration, there is an ethical framework, there is an inclusive approach, and they can have trust in the work that we do. And if we get that right now, in early 2022, when the world is fast evolving, when the potential couldn't be more exciting, if we get that right, we can go all the way to integrating data and digital and AI in our services, in our approach, and we can ultimately solve some of the world's biggest problems. I want to see that pioneered in Scotland. We're proud of our heritage. I started with Adam Smith. We're proud of our heritage, not just in the inventions and the pioneering, but we're proud of our approach, that in those inventions, in that pioneering work, we take a distinctive approach, an approach that sets us out as doing the right thing for the right reasons. I want to just close with this. In a famous paper on AI, Alan Turing posed the question, can machine think? And in Act 2 of Hamlet, William Shakespeare wrote, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Joined together, they point to the importance of the quality of our thinking in AI technologies in determining their outputs. I'm confident that in our AI strategy, in the vision, in the principles, in the practices, we have set out a clear statement of what we expect, developed, adopted, and used in Scotland and perhaps beyond, so that it thinks good. And hopefully that will be the watchword of our discussions over the rest of the day. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Cabinet Secretary Kate. Thank you very much indeed. And it's great to hear that Scotland's really thinking about what it's going to do next, what it's going to implement. It's great to hear about this AI Accelerator and the AI for Good that's coming up. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so apologies for those people at home, but we're going to get through it all. Hopefully we'll make up some time towards maybe take it out the coffee break, maybe. We'll see.